Hi, and welcome to Piano Teaching Success Q&A. I'm Gillian Erskine, and together with my colleague Paul Myatt, we've created this program so you can ask the questions on your mind. And to answer those questions, let me introduce our panel for today. Rae de Lisle is Associate Professor of Piano at the University of Auckland, New Zealand. Rae's passion is injury prevention, and she's going to share with us some of her work from her new interactive ebook called Fit for Piano. Welcome, Rae.
Hi, Gillian. Lovely to be with you.
Our pleasure. Joey Lieber joins us from New York, and you'll be able to tell this by his accent. Joey specializes in teaching jazz and improvisation online. Joey has a very popular Facebook group called Online Music Teachers, which I imagine's had a lot more people join that in the last few months. And he's a contributor to the Musico platform, which we'll hear a little bit more about later on. Welcome, Joey.
Thank you for having me. Awesome, thanks.
Our pleasure. Jo Kotchie joins us from Perth. Jo is a teacher, a composer, and she particularly enjoys working with young teachers and students who are a little bit out of the box. Australian teachers will know Jo's work from the A&B series 17 and 18 exam books. And Jo's been a busy girl because she's president of the Western Australian Music Teachers Association and co-chair for the 2021 Australasian Piano Pedagogy Conference, which will be held in Perth next year. That's mouthful, isn't it? Welcome, Jo.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
That's great. Well, like we do each week, we're going to visit our panelists in their own home studios. So, and to see what their setup's like and ask some questions. So let's start with Rae's studio. Rae, would you like to take us through your studio?
Yeah, well, I have two pianos, which is great. And so now that we're doing online teaching, I've rescued one of my grandmother's old tea trolleys, and I've put that there so I can prop my computer up on top of those books. I've got an overhead camera, which I find is fantastic for showing people fingering and various things. And I have a light. And apart from that, that's about as simple as it is, really. It's a great space with the two pianos. So as we get back into face-to-face, I'll be able to do the social distancing thing.
Uh-huh. And I've seen your studio before, actually, and you've got quite a cathedral sort of ceiling.
That's right.
Upstairs, or is this like you upstairs?
No, it's a detached room that we built, actually, specifically for piano teaching and piano events.
Aren't you a lucky girl?
Oh, it was pretty important to me.
And those tea trolleys, oh boy, we've seen a few of those come out. They're just the right height, aren't they?
Oh, they're fantastic, actually, and you can move them away when you want to do something else in the room.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, that's terrific. And yeah, someone asked, is that a Blue Yeti microphone?
It is a Blue Yeti microphone. I really like it.
It's a good sound, isn't it? I was saying that before. Oh, okay. Well, Joey, you're not new to online teaching, are you? You've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah, I've been online teaching for, well, since my mid-20s, and this is, I've been through a few different setups and a few different even places I was living, and this is where I live now. So I have two screens. The center one is where I view the student. You see the Logic camera perched on top with a Shure microphone that I use for audio input. That is a ring light to the right on the desk, which helped me with my lighting. Mm-hmm. And then the monitor to the right is used for, if I need like a piece of sheet music that I need to view. And then the monitor to the far left is used. So so it's hooked up to an Apple TV, so it can be hooked up to my computer, and I hook it up that way. It can be used for, like, if I need to work on for a student, transcribing a YouTube video from the recording, or working on using a video, our video content, and yeah. So and that little light is my special daytime light that gives me some natural lighting. So that's my whole setup.
And so your camera is just sitting on top of that center monitor. You've got like a...
Yeah, it is a Logitech Brio, which is the HD camera that they use typically for video conferencing. And that's my other side, where I take my breaks
and stretch out on that sofa,
and then immediately the big TV turns into a regular TV. So
Flexibility, that's what we like. Yeah. That's good. And you don't use an overhead camera?
The reason I don't use an overhead camera is because currently I only work with mostly professionals or more advanced kids, so they don't really need the overhead view.
Yeah.
If I was working with younger kids, maybe just starting to be intermediate or below, I would need the overhead view because they need the demonstration. The kids who I work with don't really need the demonstration. They more just need to be able to hear what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So our communication more exists on the interpersonal level, less so the demonstrative level.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll see that actually a bit later. We've got a couple of clips coming up. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Joe, can you show us through your studio?
Sure. Oh, it looks such a mess there. My studio is purpose built. We built it as an addition to our home. So I've got a bathroom, office space, and beautiful big room. It's a lovely space, and it's normally really neat. So with teaching online all of the time, it's pretty messy. I've got two pianos. They're both more than 100 years old and both have great sentimental value. So the one you can see is an old Baldwin Grand. And around the corner beside my desk, or in front of my desk, is a cable upright. Yeah, around the corner there. For teaching, I've got set up a laptop stand with a laptop on there, and I share the screen partly with Zoom and partly with the practice notes that I've got set up for my students. So what I did was create a document with everything listed that they were to practice, and I just copy that each week, duplicate it, and revise whatever they're going to be doing. So it's different for each student. And whether I'm writing in notebooks or doing the document on the computer, I always write each section in different colours so that the students can see at a glance what they're working on, and it's not just sort of like a whole load of writing on the page.
And so at the end of the lesson, you shoot that off to them in an email, do you?
Yeah, after I finish teaching for the evening, I just tidy up the notes and then email them all out. What else? I mean, I've got other computers which I sometimes have the sheet music on, but I find it easier if they just text me their music that they're working on. Like, they all have sight reading where they take home a book each week and choose what they want to do for sight reading. And if they text me their music before the lesson, then I've got it on my phone, and I can usually just look at it on my phone. It seems to be quite easy. I'm pretty cash.
That's good. Well, that's terrific. And you've been teaching online since February, but you have done a little bit of teaching before that, right?
Look, I spent about 3 months in England last year with my daughter when she was having a baby, and so I had to teach while I was there. I couldn't just shut down my studio. So I did some online teaching. Well, I taught every day while I was there, but it was pretty basic. It was WhatsApp or FaceTime, and sometimes the FaceTime was usually pretty good, but WhatsApp was usually pretty dodgy, and I didn't know about Zoom in those days. So yeah, it was just everything propped up on pillows and cushions, and just doing the best we could.
Yeah, you do what you have to.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some questions for today. We have one from Esther Constance, who's from Auckland, Rae. And she has this question. I teach piano lessons via Zoom at the moment, but find it very difficult to do singing lessons online as there are gaps in the sound. How do you do an accompaniment to a song online? Oh, gosh, there are a number of elements in that could be at play here, right? So there's the issue of Zoom dealing with that constant changing of volume. And there's, of course, the lag issues that we all know about. Joey, you've been working with lag and other issues that come with teaching online for a number of years. What suggestions do you have for Esther?
So the key thing, so I think that there's a misconception with lag, which is that it's something to be fixed. So when you see people talk about lag, they're like, how do I fix the lag? How do I get rid of the lag? But I don't think that's the correct approach. The conversation isn't about fixing the lag, it's shifting the approach where the lag simply in a way is irrelevant. So what I mean by that, and you can see a video of me later, is that in order to teach in a way where lag is irrelevant is to teach in a way where it is the student receiving value from me, who is the teacher. So speaking from a singing perspective, one of the most popular ways to achieve this is to send a backing track to the student to have in their awareness so that they are experiencing that in real time, and to simply coach them. And I think this goes beyond just singing. This goes into like duets, this goes into accompaniments, this goes into etc. Because teaching online, the relationship from teacher to student is less so synchronized. It's more so the student exists and the teacher coaches that awareness. So us as educators can take a student's awareness and provide lots of value and content for them to have a completely full experience. And I can show you an example of that with my contributions to musical later. But how can I provide a metronome for them? How can I provide a backing track for them? How can I provide an accompaniment for them? How can I provide an assignment for them to explore? And then for me, my awareness exists to simply guide them from point A, from point B. Therefore, there is no need to worry about lag because they're existing on their end, and I'm just simply kind of perched making commentary to help them get through that. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah. And there's a really great, we're going to come to a video later when you kind of ignore the lag. I love it. Joey, you've put together some blog posts also about this, and given that you run the online music teachers Facebook, you're obviously answering questions like this all the time. Can you just run us through briefly through these blog posts, because we're going to have these in our show notes.
Sure. So just because people who are watching are going to want summarize information for these blog posts, I think in general there's two main things that are being discussed in general. One is the tools being used, and two is the approach being used with the tools, right? That's like online lessons in general. And so I think in terms of tools, we're talking about the what, and the approach is the how. And once we sync the what and the how, online lessons become like anything else. So obviously, like the entire music education scene was plunged into a whole new climate. And so I think it's about shifting what we use and how we use it. So those articles are simply showing some like kind of top 10 strategies on what and how to use to achieve kind of maximum success.
That's fantastic. We'll put a link to those in the show notes. And I think you're right about the what and the how. There are definitely the two aspects to teaching online that we have to take into account, aren't there? Teaching voice online, I guess, where the volume changes quite dramatically throughout a piece or a lesson, is somewhat a little bit like teaching high-level piano students and advanced repertoire. And Zoom's just not really keen on that constant change of huge volume changes. Rae, you teach high-level students. Tell us how you overcome this challenge.
Well, I think the only way, if we're teaching something like a Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody, I think they have to record it and send it to you in advance. And then I think one of the great things about online teaching is that you can give the students specific tasks. So, for example, I sometimes say to a student, would you please record me the left hand of this particular piece or this passage, or would you please record it for me slowly? And that means that they will practice those things. Whereas if I just say in a face-to-face lesson, would you please practice your left hand? The chances are they'll do it a couple of times and then they maybe won't do it many. But if they have to record it, then the whole thing changes, and they do have to actually practice the left hand in order to record it. So those kind of things are quite useful. And I find if I've had in advance, if I've had the recording of the piece, if it's at a reasonable level, then we can just break it up, practice different voices, practice phrase by phrase or whatever. So it becomes very much a practice session in the lesson.
Have you actually found that therefore, have you found progress in some ways is being quicker?
I think some progress is quicker, but I have to say what I'm longing for is being able to really hear the colour and the different, the different nuances of sound, which you simply can't do over Zoom. So yes, we can correct notes, we can correct rhythm, we can do all of those things, but there are limitations, and I think you just have to be careful of how you use it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Jo, what's been your workarounds with advanced students or students regarding sound?
Yeah, look, I found it really, really challenging, and I did get used to it. And as Rae said, I found that there were things that were really quite advantageous, that the student would be listening more to themselves and to, because I had to communicate verbally and not so hands-on, I found asking them to record their music, but not necessarily for me, but for the recording for themselves and to listen back to the music themselves. And this was at lower level students as well as advanced students. I'd say, well, you record this, you listen back and tell me what you think of the pedalling, for instance, or can you hear the phrasing? Because quite often when you're sitting in a lesson and you want them to be phrasing something in a particular way and they're just not getting it, you say, well, okay, you record this and listen back and listen to the phrasing, and what do you hear? Oh yeah, that was a really clunky phrase ending, you know. So they can actually, I thought that was really good. They were more inclined to listen to themselves. But having students back in my studio this week, it's just such a relief, and I can hear things that I couldn't hear online.
Yeah.
So are they all back, or have you only got a few? You're doing a
Well, they've all come back in droves. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I missed them.
yeah, which is really nice.
Well, we just talked about one of Joey's students before, and about how he kind of ignores lag. And so this, we want to show you this clip of one of Joey's improvisation students, in which Joey teaches improvisation in a really free-flowing and collaborative way. It's just amazing, just gorgeous. So we're going to shoot to that now.
Try to do this one. Try this one. This one. Good.
He's just amazing, and you've got obviously the teaching style is just let's just keep on going. Let's just keep on going. Is there a backstory you can tell us about this fabulous student?
Yeah. So I can address two different things at once. I can address the student's background and also the goal of that assignment, because it'll give context into why the lag doesn't matter. So that student started with me just playing black key improvisation, and then basically pivoted to doing a full improvisation program. So he went all the way from the black keys to being pretty much advanced jazz piano level. He achieved that in around 3.5 years or something like that. So with that assignment, the reason that it works without the lag is because kind of like as I mentioned before, is in that case the student is giving value back. So or responding to it. So I give an idea, I give a phrase, and then the gap, which is called the lag, I actually use to my advantage, because I use it for him to process what I just played, and then he plays it back at the same meter that I played it. So we aren't jamming, it's just providing value back and forth. So I play an idea, the lag exists as a pause for him, and then he provides the value back in order to trade force. And the goal of that assignment is to introduce him to specifically sequence the vocabulary that exists in a certain way for him in his development. So, this idea, or I mean, that was in the wrong key, but that phrase exists to help him with moving fifths down chromatically, or sixth, or those type of shapes. It's for him to try to achieve that. So, I'm able to infuse vocabulary in his playing using natural call and response techniques, which, to prepare him from jazz later on, is if you were to go to a jam session for a jazz musician, call and response is standard for any jazz player. So it kills kind of like 7 birds with 1 stone kind of set.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous. And I would think that from his, sure, there were a couple of spots there that he did sort of think about it, and particularly when you were saying, can you do it this way, can you do it that way?
Exactly.
But actually, I would think that he probably, that first little part of the clip, he probably, it's just Zoom that gave a lag. It's just the Zoom that gave the lag, not him stopping maybe. I don't know. It's hard to know, but it doesn't matter because the teaching point was achieved. You know? So that's
yeah. So the pause is built in. That's why the lag is so beautiful. The pause exists for him to process.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that lag can be used to our benefit. So that's what I'm saying, where like lag can be used to shift around each moment to give us pause in our process, and that's how lag can be used to our advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, teaching creativity and especially improvisation is something many teachers, most teachers, have challenges with because they just didn't learn that way. Joey, can you share with us how you get your students started with improvising?
Sure. So basically, to summarize improv on a whole, is it can be used in a few different ways. So there's 2 different main forms of improvisation. One is white key improv and one is black key improv. So the reason black key improv is so imperative for beginners, and you may see this echoed in resources like, to name a few, Music Moves for Piano, or Piano Safari, or Forrest Kinney's Pattern Play. The general reason black key is the consensus for the starting point is because it allows students to use gross motor to balance in a way that is okay for their technique. Soon after, they then move to white keys, which is where, not to promote necessarily positional playing, but being able to use all 5 fingers is a little bit more natural on the white keys because it's positioned in a way where you can balance simply on the white keys in an okay way. So, so the general progression to get kids improvised for me is black key improvisation, which I've released some lesson plans in Musico, 2 white keys, which again is all in Musico available for people to use. And then from there, straight off into the blues, which is what you just saw a video of, is people using, is my student using vocabulary in that blues realm, which then can launch off into rock, jazz, or all those different things.
Whatever do. And you've got, you're going to show us a little bit, a sneak peek in Musico, aren't you? You've got a little.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. So, let me do this. So yeah, so I think just to kind of like echo what all the panelists are saying, is, can you guys see the musical thing? Okay, cool, great. So so I really love what everyone was saying, that they're sending recordings back and forth, and I really love that concept, and I really agree with it. I think especially with more advanced students, that can be really nice for saving and documenting repertoire. So just to kind of show an example, this is more beginner, but the reason that I've kind of been so fascinated by Musico ever since I came on board is that it gives a total immersion into an assignment for a student, so that you can actually send them all those kind of materials for them to interact with and actually do little video tutorials for students as well. So like, if as a teacher, we really want to, utilize that kind of communication to even further get past the delay, which is simply a part of this reality. Not only can we use those techniques like I demonstrated with my student, but we can really dig deep into the details and show them the whole accompaniment, show them all the parts of the audio and mute different parts that they don't want to listen to, show them the notations of all the different parts. Here's the teacher accompaniment, and let me just share my computer sound. You can actually play all the parts for the student. So, you know, I think that a tool like Musico is kind of a very cohesive, organized, structured way to give a student kind of that experience that we're talking about, like the other panelists were saying, how they're providing recordings. The teachers and students were providing recordings back. And this is kind of like the culmination of that concept, but in a very nice app that we can just hand to a student and say, go. So it's really nice.
One of our viewers, Mary, has said that she's been using it for 2 months and it's been a real game changer for her as well. And I think as a teacher, you can post your own students' projects on there too, can't you?
Absolutely. Also, you can just make assignments like on the fly, like in the middle of a lesson with a student live. I actually have a video of me doing that, I think, in Online Music Teachers. If you go to our Online Music Teachers group, there's a video of me doing that, I believe. But it's really pretty awesome.
Yeah, we've just only scratched the surface of what Musico can do today, but it's nice to see that. Thank you. Well, we've got a question from Elizabeth from Denver, Colorado. How do I make sure my young students develop good habits around technique during this time? I'm worried about them picking up some bad habits. Rae, what advice would you have for Elizabeth?
Well, I think that one of the things about teaching technique to young kids is that they mainly learn by you showing them, and they don't want a lot of instruction, they just want to copy. And so maybe this is where my book might be helpful, because it's full of video, and the video shows very clearly the kind of exercises that might help a certain technical problem or a certain technical development. I mean, it's about developing and maintaining coordination in the technique. So we're using not just the hands and fingers, but the arm, the torso and everything. So it gives some very basic exercises that actually help with that. So that might be one way of being able to give the student a very clear instruction by showing a video. They can have the video themselves, they can copy it, they can turn the sound off and practice along with it, whatever. Yeah,
it's very well. We'll throw that book in a minute. Just before we do though, is there a backstory? Well, this must be, I mean, this book is really something else. Obviously, there must be a passion in there somewhere.
There's a very deep passion. I guess in a lifetime of teaching, I've had so many students that have come through my door with physical problems or issues of stiffness or tension or pain. And I usually found I could help them with this, but I got a bit tired of being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And so I thought, well, there must be an easier way to get the message out, so that it's not just the students that arrive at university with these problems, but it can go right through the grades. So so that's why I sort of came up with the most basic movements that we need in order to play well at every level. And I just put simple exercises together with those movements, just showing how they relate to repertoire from the beginning right up to concert repertoire.
Okay, well, you got to show us. That's it. We need to see this book.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen and I'll find it for you. So I've given nice pretty pictures to all the actions. So we literally start with learning to drop on the piano with freedom of the arm. And so just a very basic exercise, which I've called a parachute landing. Then we go through, we have to land like a parachute, but we have to leave the keyboard without tension like a hot air balloon. And if we put that together, we get a 2-note slur. And you can see her arm is moving really beautifully in a coordinated way. And then I pop up with examples of how it goes into repertoire, like this sort of thing, where at that level of repertoire, or if we go later,
Beethoven's Tempest Sonata, if we practice slowly with an exaggerated movement, that wrist relaxation will remain when the tempo goes faster.
That sort of thing. I go through different gestures, chapter on legato, something about joint support, monkey pull-ups, which is a nice little exercise to develop those joints and to stabilize them, spyglasses, an exercise for the thumb. People who have problems with their thumbs or their fifth finger. So that, I believe, is something that it really needs to be fixed early on in the teaching. This one is to support the bridge of the hand. Then we talk about staccato, the whole arm staccato being like a trampoline bounce. So you've got things like this, where this, by the way, is Melody. She's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks.
I was going to ask you, Melody.
We double them. And then how they go, that goes into the repertoire. So
loud or soft.
It's lovely that you've got the example, the list of some specific repertoire, for example. That's cool.
That sort of thing, and going through different other things about the wrist, how the wrist needs to be flexible. This is kind of a little exercise I use. And that can go into all levels of repertoire, from this sort of or at a more advanced level, something like this.
Totally dependent on having fluid wrist movement.
And in every chapter, there are little pop-ups for the teachers which give a little bit more information, things about shapes, broken chords, cantabile, scales, rotation. I've talked about rotation being like a dog shaking himself to get dry. So this is my little exercise where we learn to actually get the freedom in that arm, which then goes into that sort of thing. Then there's little exercises with gestures, the rest being a way of getting some freedom into the rotation, more sustained rotation, broken chords and octaves. Alberti basses, which I think people often don't use rotation when they start teaching it, and yet if we use that very basic exercise to teach the rotation, then it's going to be there right the way through the repertoire, this sort of thing.
Throwing the hand to the bass notes.
And it goes on through jumps. So I've talked about jumps as being smiles or rainbows or flips. And arpeggios, whether they're slow or fast, we use a slightly different movement. And on through chords, where I'm getting the student to get the whole body behind the sound by standing up and then using that movement as she plays another loud chord, different kinds of chord playing, voicing, colors, octaves, pedaling. And at the end of the book, there's a list of all the examples that we've used throughout the book, and you just click on the page number and up will pop that particular page that's relevant to that piece of repertoire. So it's available in an ebook like this, and also in a print version, which, and you might say, well, I don't know if we can see that. You might say, how on earth can that be when you've got so much video in the book? And the thing is that it's got inside the print version, it has QR codes, and you simply hover your phone over the QR code and up will pop the video. You turn it into full screen and start it, and you have the video on your phone. So yeah, that's fit for piano.
That's a huge project. Paul and I, we've published books for 20, whatever years. And oh my goodness, that is just taking it to the whole new level with all those videos and the links that make it so easy to understand and resources at your fingertips, isn't it?
Well, that's the idea. I just feel I've got a lot of technique books on my shelves that I haven't read because they're so complicated and they take a lot of time. They're wonderful, but I wanted something that people could dip into, like a kind of toolbox.
Yeah.
It would be quick to solve a problem. Yeah, let's go to this exercise and then put that exercise into the piece. So that's the idea.
And something like technique, it's just so hard to explain it.
Yeah.
In words.
Yeah, and kids don't need all those words, actually. They just need a picture, they need a demonstration. And I mean, look, it's not all-encompassing. Obviously, if you want to go further, you can read a lot more. But I think as a quick way of getting the ideas across, that's what I hope it's useful for.
We had a question. So your philosophies on technique, are they similar to Taubman, the Taubman approach?
I have gone around the world interviewing lots of piano teachers. I've been on a Taubman course for a week-long one, not a whole course, but a week long. I've been to see Barbara Lister-Sink, and I went on her course. And I've interviewed probably 30 to 40 teachers around the world on their ideas. And I found there was quite a lot of different ideas out there, actually. But for this book, I just wanted to be really simple. And I mean, some of the ideas of Taubman I absolutely buy into. I think, we all have our own take on all of these things. And this is my take. This is what I find has been useful for me.
Yeah, and students that you've been working at a high level. And really, and you had, is it John Chen who was the winner of the international?
Yeah, that's Sydney. Yes, he was my student from the time he was 8 until he was 18 or 19 when he won the competition. Wow. So it was a really big journey to have him. That was a terrific,
that's one of the leading
terrific experience.
In the world. Yeah,
it was really special.
Yeah, it is very special. Well, Rae's got a special offer for everyone today for our viewers. So tell us about that, Rae.
Okay, well, we're offering a 20% discount on both the Apple iBooks version and also on the version in print. And the details are on the website, or I believe you'll put them up on your page after this interview. But basically, it's a 20% discount on both of those. For the Apple one will be for the next 2 weeks. And yeah, I hope people will want to take it up.
I'm sure they will. You've got a lot of fans in the chat, I can see. A lot of people who have actually know your work and are using your book already and saying fabulous things about it. So that's terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you for that special offer for our teachers. And we've got a little gift for you today, and it's brag tags. So here's Paul to tell you about it.
Brag tags are a wonderful incentive program that help you encourage, promote and celebrate positive behaviour as well as reinforcing learning. Print the brag tags out, and when a student demonstrates a behaviour or achieves a goal that you feel is worthwhile, give them one. Here's the brag tags we've got for you. I mastered something tricky. I learned a piece on my own. I finished a book. I focused for the whole lesson. I fixed my own mistake. I tried something difficult. I added a piece to my concert list. I figured it out on my own. I did what I said I'd do. I know where middle C is. Let me show you. I know all the white notes on the piano. Ask me one. I know my right hand and my left hand. Let me show you. I learned a new symbol, just ask me. I can sing and play a song, let me show you. I can play a scale, ask me to play it for you. I learn a new chord, ask me to show you. I've mastered a piece, let me play it for you. I've composed a piece, ask me to play it for you. I arrived ready to learn. I ignored distractions. I proved that I can do it. I was not afraid of something new. I reached a goal. I took charge of my learning. I used positive thinking. Clever monkey. I used clues to help me work it out. I figured it out on my own. The brag tags have been added to the resource kit this week. If you're already a member, just log in or register at pianoteachingsuccess.com.
You like Paul's voices of impersonating the people he thinks that how they'll feel if they achieve these goals. Well, we had a lot of fun designing these for you, so we hope you like them. We have a next question from Pamela, who lives in Adelaide, and she says, I have a teen who's going through a stage where she's rebelling a bit. It seems that nothing I put in front of her seems to interest her. Jo, you like teaching teens and kids who are a little bit out of the box. What do you do with students when they're going through a stage like this?
Look, I think that teens are greatly misunderstood. the thing about, oh my goodness, I didn't turn off my phone, I just put it on silent. The thing about teens is that everything is happening for them in their lives, and we tend to expect more from them when we really, I feel, should be expecting less from them. Their bodies are changing, they're trying to establish their independence, and while all that's going on, they really have a very idealistic view of the world, but they're absolutely terrified that everything's going to go wrong. So I think that working with teens, we need to be very understanding. We need to work with them on their level in a very intuitive way, and not be expecting them to be achieving what we think that they need to be achieving, but rather to be for us to be working with them in the way that they are needing. And I think one of the things that I feel quite strongly about is that teens are wanting to be immersed very much into their dark side. They like dark music, and it's very easy to sort of sit back and say, okay, well, this is where they're at, we'll let them wallow in that because that's what they really enjoy. They love minor music, dark chords. But I think at the end of the day, there's this real idealistic need within them for everything to be good and for the world to be a great place. So I think that we can give them that music, but bring them out at the other end. So that it needs to be a very fine balance, I think. I often feel with teens that we've got like this very, very precious, fragile little flower in our hands that we have to be very careful how we handle, or we're going to break it. We have to really work with them where their needs are, not necessarily where their wants are.
And I think you've said you composed a book of pieces for this age group, haven't you?
I've composed lots of pieces for teens, but one of them in particular.
Have you ever counted how many pieces you have composed?
About 500, I think.
Oh, wow.
I've got 30 books and a whole load of solos and things. But this particular book, I don't know, can you see it there?
In my room.
In my room.
That's where they live, isn't it? In their room. Mine still are in their rooms.
Yeah. So this book, what I've done is to give them a voice within boundaries. So one of the things that I think that they're very self-conscious, so they don't really want to step too far out of their comfort zone, so they need to be very carefully guided to do that. In particular, I think if they're starting to play with rubato, they want to, but it's scary because they don't know whether they're doing it right or not, and they're having to put themselves out there a little bit. So what I've done with some of the pieces in the book, I've got two versions of it. So one version will be walking them through very specific changes of dynamic timing and so forth to give them a feel for rubato, and then they will get another version which has a completely empty page of, devoid of markings, so that they can express themselves in the way that they feel once they've had a little bit of experience with how maybe to do that. So there are a few pieces in the book that do that. There are pieces there's one in particular that has little segments that they're all quite evocative pieces. So they still are going to speak to them on an emotional level, but they can put these
them on emotional level as well.
Yes. So there are lots of key changes and things that sort of make them feel, but then they always will end on a high, something that feels really good. And then there's some bits that they can put the pieces together in the way that they want to, so they've got a little bit of control over there. So they've got a voice in the music, but they've also got some boundaries in there that they can sort of stay fairly safe within.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, we thought you might like to hear some snippets of some of Jo's pieces. And the first piece is a jazz invention. Is there a story behind this piece, Jo?
Not this one particularly, but there's another piece in this book called Latchkey Baby, which I wrote when my girls, I've got 3 daughters, they're all in their 30s now, but when they were in their teens, they used to sort of sneak in the middle of the night and try to be really quiet, when they've been out clubbing or whatever. And this Latchkey Baby was, yeah.
This is a great piece, so let's play.
This is Jazz Invention, yeah.
we've also got another piece called Waterfall. So that one's about grade...
That's a grade 4th level piece.
Which in American is?
Is probably late intermediate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Waterfall is a pedaling's. The jazz invention is an introduction to contrapuntal music. The Waterfall is a first pedaling study. It's pre-preliminary level, so that would be elementary, late elementary probably. And it's an ideal first pedaling study because it has a slow rate of harmonic change. It's the whole tutorial.
There, isn't it too? So they can really just focus on the pedaling.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and it's really quite easy. So the tutorial will guide the teacher through that and how to do that.
So let's play this one. So these snippets come from Jo's tutorial video series, which she has put up on her Facebook page called songrealm.com. And we'll put links to all of the videos and also Songrealm and our Facebook page in our show notes. And thank you so much for sharing that, Jo. That's great. Well, Paul was having a chat with Tim Topham this week, and they shoot up this little quick video.
Great to have you again, Tim. How are you?
Super to catch up with you, Paul. I'm coping. I'm hanging in there. We're waiting for the kids to go back to school. Just
I
like
bet you can't wait.
It's going to be good.
So this month you had a special at Top Music Co.
We have, yes, just to support all those teachers with the move to online teaching. So we started this way back at the beginning of May, seems like years ago. We're offering our first month for $10 at Top Music Pro. And so for that, teachers can get access to all our full library of workshops and online teaching tutorials. We also dive deep into Internet MIDI with the creator of Internet MIDI, which is that system that allows two keyboards to connect over the internet, which is very cool.
Brilliant. Have you been using it?
I have. I've been testing it with one of my students, and just being able to see, because you can watch the pedaling on the screen, you can see how hard they're pressing keys, what velocity they're using. It really is a game changer if you do have a digital at both ends. It's incredible. Yeah,
brilliant.
So we've been really enjoying helping our teachers with that. So if any teachers watching, I've absolutely loved what you and Gillian have been doing with the Q&A. It's been so great to watch and such a great support for the music teaching community. So well done to you guys. And
thank you.
It'd be awesome to let everyone watching know about our discount, because it ends on Sunday at the end of May. So that's the $10 for the first month. And I'll just let you know as well, Paul, we've just released a teen and transfer student teaching course, which anyone coming and joining us will get full access to. And that's basically the combination of most of my life's work teaching teenagers all wrapped up in one course.
You're an amazing specialist with teens.
I've just always loved it. And also taking transfer students on, I just really enjoy it. I don't know why. I know a lot of people think I'm crazy, but I've always enjoyed it. And so, but I know it's a challenge. So that's why I wanted to put this course together. And so we talk about repertoire, goal setting, all those kinds of things that can be so important. And then lesson plans for all those first lessons too. So yeah, come and join us is what I'd say over at topmusicpro.com. It'd be awesome to have some more of your Q&A followers there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tim.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. See ya.
Well, let's go to another question. And this question comes from Denise Herriot from Wollongong in New South Wales. And her question is about iPads. Are you concerned about the effect of the heat generated from iPads warming up the front of the piano whilst teaching online? They can get pretty hot, can't they, after a few hours? I now try to block the heat passing through to the wood. What do others do? I'm not wanting to damage the piano's polish or affect the tuning whilst using Facebook or FaceTime or Skype. Well, we thought we would go straight to the top and get an answer for you, Denise. And Paul met with Julian Morgan-Smith, the Yamaha piano technical manager, and they put this video together for you.
Piano tuners are sometimes the unsung heroes in our industry. I couldn't live without my piano tuner. I'd love to welcome Julian Morgan-Smith to the show. Julian, we've had a question from a teacher who's concerned about the effect of heat generated from her iPad warming up the front of the piano while she's teaching online. She says, I now try to block the heat passing through the wood. What do others do? I'm not wanting to damage the piano's polish or affect the tuning.
Yeah, I definitely think trying to block the heat as much as possible is a good idea. Most modern pianos have a polyester finish, which is quite hardy and resistant to scratches, but not so much to heat. And of course, behind that finish is wood, and we want to limit how much we dry that out. So having an iPad in a folio case or just something that insulates that heat, definitely a good idea.
And Julian, you've done a lot of training in becoming a piano tuner. So tell us about the training that you've had to do.
Sure. So I went through the Australasian School of Piano Technology in 2011. It was a course that Yamaha helped set up and ran out in Ringwood. So I went through there for 1 year, 40 hours a week, and graduated in 2012. From there, I moved up to Sydney and worked at the Steinway shop for about 3 years before moving back down to Melbourne. As of last year, I started as the piano technical manager at Yamaha Music Australia, and that thankfully gives me opportunities to do further training overseas at the Yamaha factory in Japan.
So being so experienced, what sort of general maintenance should we be doing with our pianos at the moment?
So, I mean, the obvious one is tuning. I'll always tell people to tune their pianos as often as required, at least once per year, maybe twice per year if you're using it for multiple hours per day. But apart from tuning, it's important to remember that they are mechanical objects. There's thousands of moving parts inside that do wear over time. And so the regulation of the action in the keyboard is an important thing to maintain, as well as voicing the hammers will also keep the tonal consistency of your piano as well.
What does voicing the hammers? I know I've heard piano tuners talk about that. What does that mean?
So if you look at the picture behind me, hammers are basically made of layers of compressed felt. And when you think about how the hammer strikes the strings, they're going to be hitting the same spot over and over and over again, just tens of thousands of times over a year. And over time, the very nose of the hammer becomes compressed and the felt physically gets harder. And when the felt gets harder, the tone of the piano gets more harsh and more metallic. So the classic example is when you play on, really old upright piano and it sounds quite jangly and metallic, almost like a harpsichord in extreme circumstances. So voicing is the act of actually inserting needles into that felt to soften it. And you can actually make quite dramatic differences to the sound of a piano. You can make it as mellow as you want, and it makes a big difference.
Great. So there's many teachers around who are lucky enough to have a Yamaha C-Series Grand. I'm also lucky enough to have one myself. What is the best way to clean Yamaha's Ivorite keys?
So due to the way that the Ivorite material is designed, it's basically designed to mimic the absorption properties of ivory. So with that in mind, it's important to know how chemicals interact with that material, especially now people are wanting to disinfect it multiple times a day. We don't recommend using harsh chemicals such as alcohol or bleach, because over time that material will soak it up and actually become weak and brittle over time. So our recommendation is to use a mild detergent solution in warm water, applied to a microfiber cloth that's wrung out as much as possible so it's not dripping wet, because we don't want water dripping down the sides of the keys where the wood is exposed.
Great advice. Thank you so much for your time, Julian.
No worries, my pleasure.
It was great to have that feedback, and I do know from speaking to people at Yamaha that apparently in one of the conservatoires, they have noticed some of the Ivorite keys getting little cracks on them, and they believe it's from alcohol cleaning wipes or what have you. So just make sure if you got one of I'm also very lucky to have one of those as well. Oh, two of those Yamaha C ones with the Ivorite. Okay, well that's all we have time for today, and I'd like to thank Rae de Lisle, Joey Lieber, and Jo Kotchie for being with us today. And next week we have a special treat for you. Over the last few weeks, we've had panelists from Canada and the US, and we thought you might enjoy having a panel of UK experts. And to give our UK viewers the opportunity to see the program live, for next week's show only, we'll be going live on Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be 11 a.m. I think in UK. So sorry, US viewers, you're going to be asleep, but you can catch the replay on our Facebook page, or if you're on our watch list, you'll get it sent to your inbox. We're so excited about our UK panelists for next week. There's Nicola Canton, who is the music game queen. Nicola creates all sorts of teaching resources for her vibrant musicteaching.com community. And Nicola is also a bit of a keep it simple tech queen. We've actually put some of Nicola's videos in our Brave Cats or Cool Cats page. Some of you might remember her from there. And if you have any questions on tech or keeping it simple or making lessons fun with games, please send them through. Penelope Roskell works with advanced students and teachers and is a leading specialist in healthy piano playing. So we're looking forward to seeing what she has to say. And Sally Cathcart is one of the curious piano teachers. Sally's just released a new 2-book series on how to engage the ear and use a sound before symbol approach when teaching piano. So I know there's lots of curious piano teachers out there all over the world. So here's your chance to ask Sally a question. If you'd like to ask a question, there's 3 ways you can do that. One is to send us an email. You can post it. Second one is you can post it in our Facebook group, or you can click the Ask a Question button, which is on all of our episode pages, and complete the form. Well, I'd like to thank Paul Myatt, who's been producing today's show and is responsible for all the videos and behind the scenes tech. And we're going to go out today to the music of one of Paul's students, Bas Buwalda, who's now living in Singapore. Bas has composed a song for the times. I hope you get a laugh from it. On behalf of all of us, stay well, and we'll see you next Thursday. Bye.
Oh, quarantine, it's been a real long week, but at least I know I won't be getting sick. And though it seems forever